The table is a meeting place, a gathering ground, the source of sustenance and nourishment, festivity, safety, and satisfaction. A person cooking is a person giving. Even the simplest food is a gift. This is a quote from famed novelist and regular contributor to Gourmet magazine, Miss Lori Colwyn. Food is the main ingredient this week, as I sat down to chat with Alison Kirksey. Alison runs a successful food blog that is called That Which Nourishes. I had the chance to meet her at an awesome event held at Barrel and Beam here in Marquette, where she did a demo of her world-famous mac and cheese recipe. And I say world-famous quite literally. It is the most repinned recipe on Pinterest at over 300,000 and counting. She and I have a lot to dish on. So without further ado, let's chat it up. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 11 of the Chat It Up podcast. I'm sitting here with Mrs. Alison Kirksey. Am I pronouncing that right?
You got it.
Okay,
Perfect.
all right. I'm, sometimes with last names, I don't want to.
You did great.
So, Alison, first of all, thank you for coming on the podcast.
My pleasure.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to be sitting down and chatting with you. So, you're a transplant, as you told me. So,
Yes.
So you're not originally from the UP, but you currently, call the UP home. So where exactly do you live?
We live at the base of the Keweenaw.
Okay.
So we're in the Nisula, Pelkey area.
Perfect. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I always tell people, because I've been through that way quite often, and someone's like, "Well, where's Nisula?" I'm like, well, get to Baraga and take a left.
There you go.
That's the way
exactly
that's how I
Straight
describe it to
on.
people. Yeah. Like I try to be straightforward.
Yeah.
So how long have you lived in the Keweenaw?
We moved up here in 2014.
Okay.
We lived downstate in West Michigan originally. Actually, we grew up there.
Oh, okay.
And the funny part of that is that both Christian and I, our families are from that area and lived there their whole lives, even grandparents, and nobody had ever been to the Western UP.
Wow.
Nobody even knew it was here.
Sure.
And as we bring them all here, they're just astounded at what this place is, but it's unexpected.
Right, that's
Yeah.
excellent. So what was it that really drew you to the Upper Peninsula?
That's kind of a funny story. We have had the privilege to travel the country. We road tripped all 48 states with our kids.
Oh, that's excellent.
Yeah, and so we've seen a lot. We've been to several countries too for my husband's business.
Okay.
And so we have seen a lot of places and fell in love with a lot of things. And we were looking to kind of get a place with some privacy and some land. And, everybody in West Michigan goes straight over the bridge and up into Newberry and Whitefish
Right.
Point, right? That's where everybody knows. So that's kind of all we knew of the UP as well, and not even that much of it.
Sure.
And at some point, one of my kids started pointing us west, and they showed me this area, and they were showing me pictures, and they're showing me the mountain biking trails and the mountains and all the epic things that are here. And I said, heck no, I don't want that much snow. I don't want to be that far from my friends. What kind of crazy person do you think I am?
Yeah.
And when you say I'll never do something, that's usually when you're challenged to do it eventually.
Sure.
So all it took was my son for me to find me a house. And he found me a house, and he brought it to me, and it hit me square in the heart. And we knew we were supposed to live there. We'd never been here. Mm-hmm. We drove up in February to look at the house, so the snow was up past the Culver's windows. Not even kidding. And we knew we were supposed to be here. So we came up, and our grown kids came up too.
Sure.
And our daughter was, I think she was 15 at the time, our youngest.
Okay.
And so we brought her. And since then, everybody's settled in and bought farms and are making homesteads, and I don't think you could pry us away.
I love it. I love that. And so you mentioned farms and settling, and a lot of what we're talking about today is food because you run a food blog. So was food and like cooking always a really big part of your upbringing or a part of your life, or was it something that you kind of found along the way?
I did find it along the way. My mother was a terrible cook.
Okay.
Literally awful. We can still talk about things. Whew, I don't know what she was thinking. So spicy spaghetti is not a thing.
No, it's not. It's really not.
And I think my dad was just hungry, so he ate her food and flattered her, and so she kept cooking, sadly.
To be fair to your mom, in fact, I shout out to my mom. She loves listening to this podcast, so I know she's going to listen to this episode. I promise I'll be nice about this. She actually just said she sends me home with spaghetti sauce quite a bit, and she said, "Have you tried this spaghetti sauce yet? This last batch?" I said, "No, why?" She goes, "I may have gone a little crazy with the crushed red pepper."
See?
She said my niece Katie, she had fed it to her, and she said, "Oh, Grandma, this is really spicy." So people do make spicy spaghetti.
Apparently
not necessarily
Maybe
on purpose,
they shouldn't.
but
I don't know. So, and the truth is, both my parents were working, and I, not to have some big sob story or anything, but I would come home and there wouldn't be food in the house, and I would figure out, I wanted something and start putting things together, and they were awful, and I shouldn't share what they were at the time. But we got married. We're high school sweethearts. We got married real young, and I remember my very first meal I made. I was so excited to have my own kitchen and my own ingredients and start experimenting with food. And so I started doing that, and apparently people liked it. We started having people over all the time, and strangers would come in. It was a big part of who I am, is to share what we have. And my husband as well. We both find that just kind of important to being who we are as a family, is to bring people into our home and share a meal.
That's wonderful.
So we started doing that, and the more I cooked, it seemed like the more people showed up. And pretty soon I was always the one hosting and always the one cooking. And so at some point somebody said, I would like your recipe for whatever, or would you share that with us? And so it just seemed like the natural progression with the blog that we had started for our travels.
Okay. So you started this blog essentially to highlight your traveling around the whole United States. Yes. So you were really kind of cooking in tight quarters, right? Yes. I mean, not necessarily ideal when you think of like your kitchen setup, right?
No, it was very tricky. In fact, I think I wrote a blog post called Ma Ingalls Meets Polly Pocket.
Okay.
Because I had this tiny little oven, and I was cooking from scratch and making it work. When you have your whole family and your dog and you're traveling, you can't eat out every meal. It's just not feasible. At 5 miles per gallon, it's enough to fuel the whole venture. So, no, I was cooking like I needed to cook to, stay on a budget, and that's what I know to do.
Sure.
So, we cooked as we went. The trip, originally, we homeschooled our kids so that we could travel more. Sure. That was part of the reason.
Yeah.
And one of my assignments I gave my daughter was to blog the trip.
Okay.
And about halfway through, I think I stole it from her because I love to write.
Right.
That's my passion too. And so I was documenting events as well. And when we got home, it just kind of dawned on me that, wow, this is a really great way to put out there what I love to do. So the two kind of coincide. If you dig around on the blog, you'll find more than just food, but you kind of have to poke around a bit.
I like that a lot. And what's cool is that before you were even ever a transplant Youper, the themes of kind of your trip and what you were highlighting in that blog really fit, in my opinion, a lot of the UP lifestyle, i.e. when you're talking about bringing people around the table with your food, community, bringing people together, and also the kind of resiliency, figuring things out, making it work, i.e. you're in a small kitchen, but figuring things out and trying things and making the most out of it on a tight budget. That's stuff, Youpers and really anybody could probably kind of relate with. So I think that's really cool. Now, let's talk about the recipe.
Okay.
So you ended up having the most pinned mac and cheese recipe on Pinterest.
True.
How many times has it been pinned?
We're almost to 4 million for that recipe alone.
That is unbelievable. So truly something that went viral.
Well, I'm going to take that back. Viewed on my blog is 4 million. I'm unsure right now the amount of pins.
I thought I saw over 500,000 pins.
That's the last somebody has mentioned it to me. It's kind of a hard thing to track.
Right.
Because one pin you can record, but all the other pins you can't really keep track of.
Sure.
So I'm not sure if there's a way to track that.
So how did this mac and cheese recipe come together? I mean, what?
Well, I like to say that because I try to think back to where it started, and baked mac and cheese was a thing I'd never tried in my life until, I don't know, maybe 2010 or 11. And I was experimenting with recipes because apparently it was a thing, so I was trying it. My son was about to go live on his own.
Okay.
And I knew that was a food he could make for himself, and he enjoyed it a lot, so I knew he would.
Sure.
So we worked on that, but back then it had eggs in it, and it was a whole different thing, you know? Which, I do say, I think mac and cheese is kind of like dog breeds, where it's varied and vastly different depending on who you ask and what you like, right?
Yeah.
So mine's just, I think, a solid base recipe for making it your own. But I just kept experimenting with the recipe, and this is the one that landed in my kitchen, and when I put it out there, it took off. So that's all I know about it.
It's just incredible because, I mean, obviously it wasn't your intent for it to reach the levels that it has.
Absolutely not. I had no idea, and I do find it ironic and hilarious that a girl from pretty much the most north is making a southern recipe that's heard around the world.
Yeah. It's just fascinating what resonates with people and what becomes viral. Yeah. That just always is super. You just never know.
You never know.
And so, obviously, the success of that recipe has helped you a lot in growing your food blog. So your food blog is called That Which Nourishes.
Correct.
How did that name come about? It's an interesting name, and it's a name that I like, but I'm just kind of curious how you came to that name.
Thank you. Honestly, that's something that we've always prayed before we ate, was that the food would nourish our family. And so that was a word that resonated with me. I like to think I'm a word girl. I love words. I love stringing them together. And I think that they have deep value and meaning like names do. And I take that seriously. So as I looked for a name, I wanted that word in there. So I just kind of think it came about from that.
That's great. I like that a lot. Knowing that backstory. And I think it fits the image that I think in my head of when I think of food in the UP, or what I associate with our food culture is nourishing, hearty, like today it's this cold, overcast fall day, and you're outside all day working in the woods or wherever it is, and you want to come in and you want to eat something that's gonna comforting
food.
And it's gonna, as I say, stick to your rib.
That's right.
Or warms you to your bones.
That's a good way to put it, and that's exactly, you captured exactly what I try to create with my food. I think that's where the name started, but then as the whole thing evolved and grew into what it is, what I try to make are recipes from scratch with as many local and organic foods that I can come up with.
Great.
I think it's really important to support the people who are working really hard to put food on our tables. So that matters a great deal to me. I feel like that's nourishment. And I also think that coming together as families or as friends or as community or as, our whole area and as the UP, as it broadens, that's nourishing too.
It is.
We need emotional nourishment, and we need the actual nourishment. So I think that it ended up encompassing more than I meant for it to.
That's perfect. I think that's just perfect. So with this blog and particularly the recipe being shared as much as it has, you must hear from people from all over the world, I would guess.
I do. It's funny because I can look at my stats and see where people are reading it.
Okay.
And so as I started to do that, I would get Cosmopolitan UK, Women's Day UK, the Daily Mail UK, all these different places were all of a sudden featuring my mac and cheese as the most pinned recipe on Pinterest.
Sure.
So I was going to these online magazines all over the world, and I'm hearing from lovely people. I've made friends, online friends with people I never would have met in real life.
Sure.
Who want me to come stay with them, or who send me pictures of their food. And so, I mean, the reach of it has been astounding.
I love that too. And with this podcast, that's probably my favorite part of this, besides getting to meet people like yourself and learning about all this cool stuff in the UP. But hearing from people, whether it's somebody from my hometown in Iron Mountain that says, hey, I listened and that was really cool, to I can see stats too of who's listening. And so shout out to I don't know if it's one person in Spain, and there's there's one in Sweden, and another shout out to my friend John Garrett, who lives in South Korea.
Wow.
I mean, it's just so cool to something that you're putting out from here in the little Upper Peninsula can resonate across the world and back.
Yeah, and it seems like, I think what I've learned from being here, one thing I've learned from being here is that it's like the world's best kept secret, and you both want people to know about it and don't want people to know about it, because it has such a beautiful, unique culture that should be maintained, and yet it also has so much to offer. Mm-hmm. So I think there's a real push to find the balance as we see more tourists come in right now, and we need the growth, we need the ideas, we need all these things to happen, and yet so many people are hesitant, to allow change. So it's a really interesting thing that we're observing, because we were that. We were the people coming in, and we could feel the resistance to being the new neighbors. Of course. And, trying to come into environments that were already established.
That is hard, and that's one of the number one things that I hear from somebody that's not from the UP that moves up here, comes up here, is everybody, the majority of people have lived here their whole life.
Yes.
And so you've got that tight knit.
Yes.
So the last episode that I had or 2 episodes ago with Mike Forrester, he had said, kind of using Marquette as the example of, it's like Marquette's the hottest nightclub that you're not sure you can get into. I feel like the UP is kind of like that same way. Like, it's this amazing place you want to get into, but you're not really sure if you're going to get accepted once you're...
It's true. And, we would get through a really hard winter and go, are we Upers yet? To the locals. We would say, are we in? We did that. That was really hard. Yeah. Are you calling me a Uper yet? And just on our road alone, we have one neighbor.
Okay.
And... within a mile, probably.
Sure.
And that is interesting. But since in the last probably few months, we've had 2 of the properties sell and neighbors come in, and then the other ones sell and neighbors come in, and all of a sudden it's not quiet like it was before, and we feel ourselves doing the same thing. Mm-hmm. Like, I get it. We get it. Yeah. And yet we want to beat it.
Right? Well, and, I know another difficulty you and I, before we sat down to talk, that you kind of mentioned just a little bit was, and I can really relate to this, is you're essentially a one person show. Mm-hmm. So you're running your website, and like you said, when you first got your website going, you couldn't handle the traffic, right?
People told me I broke the internet because they were trying to get to my recipe, and it's a holiday and they're trying to make it, and the site crashed. Wow. And so I'm on the phone at all hours of the day and night on Thanksgiving and Christmas, different times, trying to get it to be able to handle the volume of traffic it was getting all of a sudden. I don't want to do that part.
Right. Yeah,
I like to make food.
Yeah.
So, you get thrown into this situation that has been created that I think is unique to this time in the world, and you have to figure it out. And so I've done it enough to do that, but I've also chosen not to monetize my blog yet. It's been a tough choice. My poor husband is like, please. So we fund it ourselves, but I'm a purist. I want it to stay accessible. I don't want pop-up ads everywhere. Sure. I don't want to do what everybody else is doing either. Yeah. So if it continues to grow, then, I might have to bring in some help. But for now, we got it.
That's a good problem to have, though.
Right? Yeah.
And I like the idea of you keeping it pure, and I love the website, how it's just all about the food.
Yes.
I'll be honest, because I try and pride myself on doing my homework before I sit down with somebody and getting to learn about them. And it was hard for me to find info to kind of learn about you because your website and all of your stuff, it's about the food.
It is.
Your about section is only about a paragraph long, if that. So it was like, you're really truly just focusing on the recipes, and that's nice to see. I like that.
Thank you.
Let me see. Another thing I wanted to ask you about is, what do you find yourself gravitating towards as far as like cooking? I'm sure it's almost kind of like, I hate to use the cliche of seasons of your life, but I'm sure that kind of ebbs and flows what you gravitate towards. So like right now, what have you been kind of gravitating towards with your cooking?
That's a good question. When my kids were smaller and maybe the budget was tighter.
Sure.
And before I really thought about what we were eating, I would cook differently.
Yeah.
It was okay to throw a block of cheese that wasn't really cheese in there. And now, maybe my own kids and their homesteads have inspired me to really consider every ingredient. So what I gravitate now more toward are foods that, well, there's the word again, really nourish me. Things that are actually important for me to eat. So I'm taking food from scratch, but I like the things like maybe my grandma would have made.
Okay.
I think back to the things that maybe she made, and then maybe I'll add in something that I've traveled and tasted and would like to recreate. I was just in Miami, and I met a lovely woman who is Cuban, and she just sent me her family's recipe for Cuban chicken and special ingredients that we don't have in our grocery stores.
I was going to say, there might be some stuff you have to
Amazon
outsource.
and I are very good friends. In fact, when we were moving here, I said, if Amazon goes there, I'll go there. That was the final straw.
Oh, that's good.
So, all those things influenced me, or something somebody shared with me, or, but basically I'm trying to get down to basics. Those good ingredients taste amazing.
Absolutely.
And I want to learn foods I didn't know before. I hadn't had turnips and parsnips and things like that.
Yeah.
So as that grows beautifully up here. So let's use that.
Well, and that kind of feeds into this event that you held here in Marquette.
Yeah.
So this event, for those listening in, first of all, shout out to Nick and Marina from from Barrel and Beam for holding this event, or having you here to make your mac and cheese recipe. But you basically kind of had a collaboration with the Taste the Local Difference campaign, and the focus of that being what you talked about earlier with as much local stuff as you can possibly find, which we're so lucky in this area. There's so much, and you probably, you deal with it on a daily basis, right?
100%. In fact, as we went around the country, and they're different, obviously food is so culturally different no matter where you go, and I don't mean just spices and flavors and things, or what people make, but I also mean what's available. And so there would be places we would go, a little tiny town in the bottom of the mountains that only had a market full of amazing organic food, and we hadn't been exposed to that before where we were. Okay. So that all of a sudden became something we wanted, and when we moved here, and that was the bonus. We had this amazing, beautiful place with every possible activity we could come up with outside, and my big stipulation was to be on a Great Lake. Okay. I'm a beach girl, so I pretty much live on Lake Superior in August and September.
Fair enough.
And so that was a stipulation. But then when we got here and we walked in the co-ops, we literally, my daughter and I, jumped up and down in excitement because it's available here. And I'm not sure everybody realizes what a gift that is.
I don't think a lot of people do, or the extent of like the farmers market in Marquette. My girlfriend and I go there quite often, and it's just grown, and it's
phenomenal,
huge. And I love seeing the amount of local farms
and it's growing in Houghton. That's closer to our neck of the woods,
which is great too. I mean, you wouldn't associate that with that region, like you said, with the amount of snow and just...
I don't think you would, but we have these clever farmers who are still growing carrots under snow.
Wow.
Literally under snow.
Yeah.
And so I think it speaks so highly to the creativity and resilience of the people here.
Absolutely.
I am so just excited to watch it and learn it. And so the least I can do is honor it with, what I'm trying to do too.
Sure. Have you found yourself experimenting or working on, I know you mentioned during your demo, as far as like hunting and using fresh meat from that, or hunting and fishing, that type of stuff. Have you been delving into that?
Absolutely. In fact, that's a whole new concept for yours truly. Since I got up here, it's a different time in my life. I'm technically retired. I taught piano for like over 20 years.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
And then I couldn't listen to bad music any longer. So my husband has his own business here. And so I am able to travel with him and be a part of that with him. But the rest of my time, we host a lot of guests and I cook a lot. But basically, one of the things I found I love to do is hunt. And I had no idea that was going to be a thing in my life. But, I normally this time of day would be in my deer stand. So actually it's become a family thing. I mean, we can a lot of food. We grow a lot of food on our property. We have orchards and we have grapes and all kinds of fruit. And my daughter and son-in-law have a huge garden and we buy from them. And then we hunt, and my kids raise meat, and so we actually butcher it at home.
Oh wow! So you're really a one-stop shop. You're in it.
That's kind of the goal as a family, and it's really grown from something we didn't even plan on.
Sure, that's a lot of fun, and I'm sure that's going to be a lot of lasting memories.
Absolutely.
The hunting and even the growing is ingrained so much in the culture here.
Yes.
When I think of my own kind of childhood and upbringing, I think of time spent at camp and hunting and providing, but at the same time, like my grandma always having that garden and having the fresh carrots and her beans and canning beans and doing dilly beans.
Beautiful lifestyle. Mm-hmm. And I think, as we travel around and talk to people, you think we have two heads when we tell people that this is the lifestyle that we live, and it's hard work. Mm-hmm. I mean, we work very, very hard to live the way that we do, but I don't know if once you can do anything different.
Yeah. If you don't know anything different, then absolutely, for sure. As far as with your website and your blog and everything, have there been any other kind of like struggles or difficulties that you've kind of run into besides just the technical aspect of it? I mean,
one thing that's hard to deal with is negativity.
Okay.
And how to balance that. I mean, the interwebs are a very brave place for people who find their voice there who wouldn't have it to your face.
Sure.
And I actually have had probably 98% a good experience. But when it did go over to the UK, I think they have a real, how to say, the way they look at Americans and the way that we eat and our lifestyle. And they're judging the blog based on one very rich, cheesy, yummy, buttery recipe.
Sure.
And that isn't the way I cook all around.
Right.
But they had a lot of people chime in and say a really bunch of rotten things when that first came out. And that's been a real challenge for me personally, is how much do I put myself out there?
Sure.
Which is why you probably can't find a lot of information about me, because I don't want to do videos like everybody else. I don't want to do those things because I think there's, I'm not sure that I need that in my life.
Absolutely.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So balancing out, I want people's honest opinion, and I've had a lot of that, and that I can handle.
Sure.
But I also think that dealing with people just being cruel has been a thing I didn't expect.
Sure.
Here's my recipe, say something mean. Is not what I expected going into it.
But I like that idea of you're really kind of just letting the food speak for itself.
Yes. Yep.
I do like that a lot, and unfortunately, there's always that negative
backlash.
side of it.
So I just don't look.
Sure. Well,
I answer every comment on my blog. Every time somebody comments on it, good or bad, I post it and I answer it.
Sure.
Unless it's just truly evil, and then that doesn't need to be there.
Right.
But as far as, comments on magazine articles printed elsewhere or whatever, I just don't look.
That's probably the right way to approach it. At least I think I would probably handle it the same way. Yeah. So now, I mean, you have your food blog, but you also have a kind of little separate section that's a little more personal. You, right? Yeah. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. That's where it all started. We have, if you actually dig layers in, you'll find our trip blog.
I was starting to dig. I didn't really peel all the layers of the onion back, but that's what I was asking about it.
It was the coolest thing we ever did as a family. And if anybody gets a chance in life to travel with your kids, go, go, go. I can just say it enriched our family in a way that you can't replace, and it enriched us as people as far as broadening our view of the world. So get out there.
Yeah.
It's an amazing country.
Well, and how neat that, well, at least for me, you're the second person that's been on this podcast that has done it, because Bugsy did the same thing. He did it by himself. Okay. But he traveled when he graduated college. He hit all 48.
It's an epic thing to do. There's so much to see. We waited till our baby was old enough so she could remember everything we saw. That was another thing. So the challenge sometimes is hitting your kids' ages, right? So that's one of the things that I did. And then, I love to write. So I think I have somewhat of an interesting life story that is too long of a story probably for this interview. But there's been a lot that has happened, and so being able to put that into words was a very healing process for me. So that coincided, and when I started the blog, I said I just want people to be able to, if they want more, then there's more available.
Sure.
If anybody can benefit from where I've walked, I would like for them to have that option to see that too.
Absolutely.
So, our family has had an interesting journey, and so that's there too. If you want it.
If you want it.
If you just want mac and cheese, do that.
I like that. You're giving people the option, but I can definitely relate as somebody who's a writer myself. I agree with you completely that even if nobody reads it, just putting a pen to paper or typing on a keyboard, getting it out is very cathartic, and it's something that I relate a lot to. Yeah, so it's nice to hear that from someone. Right? I'm not alone. No.
Right? I agree completely. I think that if you do write, or if however you choose to express yourself, whatever form that takes.
Sure.
Some people run for healing, and some people, find it in their work. Whatever your outlet is, I just think it's really important to do it, to be brave enough to do it.
Do you feel that you find yourself using the food as an outlet too?
Absolutely. I think, because I play piano and I have done some singing and that kind of thing. None of those are a fit where I feel like it expresses, where I'm able to really be. I always say, if I love you, I feed you. If I fed you, I probably love you. Except for today, I'm not sure. I don't know these people, but that's a way that I can. We just went on a big trip, and when we came home, the first thing I wanted to do is start cooking again. I want to create things. I want to taste and try things, and it's just who I am.
So, I'm sure there's a lot of other people out there that would like to start cooking or start creating, or maybe they've started that journey and they're maybe kind of hitting some hurdles or speed bumps. What sort of advice would you have for people that are getting into cooking or are kind of heading down that journey?
I think you hear a lot of people say they can't cook, and I always want to be able to talk to them when I hear that, because the truth is I think anybody can cook, but it's about finding the right recipes.
Sure.
I think there's a knack in that. And I think experimenting is important, and letting yourself fail is really important, and burning things is part of the process. It doesn't mean you can't cook, it means you're learning.
Sure.
So I hope that my blog, everybody always says, ooh, you make that, you should send me that. Well, my blog is there so that you can do it.
Yeah.
And I hope that the way I present it is in a way that somebody, I've had people write me, and it means so much to me. Every comment matters to me. Someone will say, I didn't know I could cook, and I made this for my boyfriend, and he was so excited. And, that's what it's all about. So I say, don't quit.
Don't quit?
Keep trying.
Okay.
Even if you fail, anything we do in this life is about continuing to try. Just don't give up. Read. If you want to make a recipe, look at 10 different people's ideas of how to make it.
Sure.
And then see what resonates with you and keep trying.
I like that, kind of guessing and testing.
Yes.
And yeah,
tasting.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, Alexa, when we said guess and test, I guess Alexa wanted to join in on there.
She's having trouble.
I guess so. So the one thing I didn't, and I didn't dive too far into the recipes page, but I'd be curious to know, have you started going down the pasty route? Is there pasty recipes on there?
That's an interesting question too. I can't now because my daughter now makes the best pasties I've ever had.
She does.
She makes the whole thing from scratch, and her latest ones have been all from her own farm.
Ooh.
I don't know if you can top that, so I'm not going to try.
Yeah. So now when you say it, now is it a traditional pasty with rutabaga and
thing,
okay,
all from her garden and her farm and her meat and the whole thing.
Wow.
So I'm just kind of, I always say it's kind of better to have the friend with the pool than have the pool yourself. So if my kids can grow the things and make me the things, I win.
So when you moved up here, were you aware of like the pasty culture, or did you not realize it was like as big as it is? Or
we knew it was the UP thing.
Okay.
We did not know the whole gravy ketchup thing.
Okay.
We thought they had gravy because everywhere toward the bridge has gravy.
Okay.
Right?
Yep.
And we hadn't, tried it from all the places yet.
Sure.
So, of course, we have our favorite now, other than my daughter's, which is for the win.
Okay. Now, in your travels, did you see in like Minnesota and heading kind of west a little bit, do you remember seeing there still being like pasties or them selling that you can recall?
Mm-hmm. Nope, it didn't.
Because I've had some people say that you can still find them. It's not necessarily just UP. It's kind of spread. But
well, there are a couple states nearby who are a little bit want to think they're like Michigan, and they're not.
And you know what? Now that I'm thinking about this too, is it's probably a safe play for you to not do a pasty recipe on the blog, because if your UK haters that you were talking about get a hold of it, being that pasties came from Cornwall there.
There's that whole thing. My son was on a boat to Isle Royale not long ago, and he spoke with some people from Cornwall.
Yes.
And they were talking about pasties, and he was saying that they have the kind with the two sections, one dessert and one. Now that would be a thing. That
would be interesting. That would be super interesting.
I really do.
One of the things that, it's been a couple of years since I had one, but it was definitely kind of different for me, or a different take that I really enjoyed, was a breakfast pasty.
Oh, yeah.
So a sausage and egg with the potatoes and everything in there, and it was pretty awesome. And that to me was like a game changer, that because you just associate it with like a lunch or a dinner, but like a traditional, but it was like, this is actually pretty awesome as like a breakfast thing too.
I love when people put a plate. I think there's room to play with any kind of food and make it your own. I really do. And some of them are going to come back home to what it was originally meant to be.
Sure.
And some, you never know. Some of it could take off. You never know.
So, well then, I have to ask you the question that I ask everybody then. Do you prefer gravy on your pasty, or do you prefer ketchup on your pasty?
I eat it plain.
You like them just plain?
What does that mean?
That a lot of people would say you're a true Youper eating it just plain. My grandfather was he was from Pennsylvania originally, but came here back in the 50s, and he was butter and maybe a little bit of salt and pepper, but that was That was it. He was very like
purist, right?
Yes, very traditional for sure.
Yep, I'm there.
So I've hit pretty much all of the questions that I had on my list. Was there anything else that you wanted to get across to those listening about your blog or what you're doing or cooking or anything like that? Any last kind of little parting words?
No, I think we covered a lot. I'm super excited, to work with Alex from Taste the Local Difference today and to meet Marina. Oh my gosh, come check out this facility. If you have not been to Barrel and Beam, you need to come see Barrel and Beam.
It's beautiful.
Incredible facility.
And an old building that was vacant for quite a few years that they were able to rehab and save. And that's so important. Yes. And there's so many places around the UP that could benefit from...
Absolutely. So that's important. What Alex is doing is super important too. She's phenomenal. And so look her up and check out her things. I think those two things are really important. But to have the union of all of our minds together, I'm hoping that it grows.
Absolutely.
That we can continue this kind of thing and maybe help people learn that they can make things that they didn't know they could. I hope that the blog is that. If you're listening and you try something or you want to try something, please comment. I will find you and I will answer you.
I will find you.
Yeah. It matters to me. It matters to all of us that what we do resonates somewhere. So I hope that this does.
Absolutely. And if you're listening out there, you need to try the mac and cheese recipe because I ate it and it was amazing and I'm going to try and make it at home. So maybe we'll put it up there on the podcast page. We'll throw that one because I did take the card with it so I could put that up there so people the link too. I can link over to it. That would be great so people can give it the old try in their own home. So thank you again for sitting down with me. I appreciate it. And it's always great meeting new people, but this was an awesome combo. So thank you. Thank you a lot.
Great.
Okay, it's time for my takeaways from my chat with Alison. The first is the idea of working for something. Alison wasn't a great cook right away, but she's worked at it and she's worked at her recipes and she's perfected all of that over time, through guessing and testing and figuring out what works. This can be applied to nearly any facet of your life. So whether you're a chef just starting out, or you're striving for any other goal, don't give up when you hit a roadblock. Keep working at it until you find your perfect recipe of success. My next takeaway is the idea of something as simple as a recipe going viral. This day and age, something going viral is almost a regular occurrence. And usually, viral things fall into two categories. The first is usually things that are shocking or amazing, to the point that you can't look away. The second category is a little more meaningful. These are things that are pure, genuine, and honest. They strike a chord with something that's inside of each and every one of us. And in Alison's case, it's a delicious, hearty bowl of mac and cheese. This kind of feeds into my final takeaway, which is the power that food holds. As I mentioned in my intro, it's a necessity of life, but it's also more than just fuel and energy that our body needs. From simple nightly meals as a family to large gatherings of great importance, food almost always plays a key role, and really it has throughout history. Even today, the term breaking bread is still associated with coming together over food for a friendly interaction. And that's because food has the power to unite us and to nourish not just our bodies, but our minds and our souls. I would challenge anyone listening to this as we head into November and the holiday season to think about those in your life and also those in your community. Maybe it's a neighbor that's been going through a hard time. Or maybe it's a relative that you have disagreements with. Whatever the case may be, I'm encouraging you to make them a dish and bring it to their house. Or maybe invite them out to lunch or over for a meal. However you choose to do it, my point is to just put everything aside, even if it's only for an hour, and break a little bread. Because you never know what you might cook up. Chat It Up is a bi-weekly podcast about all things Upper Peninsula of Michigan. If you haven't already, please subscribe, rate, and leave me a review. You can also find Chatted Up on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you for listening in. I'm your host, Shooter, reminding you to keep your chin up and your eyes forward.